have and the have-nots. The line. The place that people on the bottom are trying to get to, and the place that people on the top are trying to keep from going below. They don't want to look below it either. They don't want to see what's down there, because that'll make them feel too guilty about being above it.
The line is the firing line in which people face survival or death. And sometimes the person holding the gun is their neighbor, and sometimes it's their congressman or their alderman who's not doing enough to help them.
The line is where you were always in a position to give help. And then for the first time, this line of, I've gone from being somebody who could help to being somebody who needs help.
There's a certain amount of pride that comes in being independent. And there's a certain amount of shame that comes into having to beg for every little thing that you get.
$23,000 is no money, nearly. And yet I could still see families who make $35,000, who are still poor, who are still about to lose their home, who still can't afford groceries.
When you start trying to tell people about poverty, they start making excuses and making heartless statements about why people are in poverty, and they don't even have a clue. They don't even have a clue.
Some of the most prevalent and damaging stereotypes about poor people are that they're lazy, that they're stupid, they don't have any skills, prefer poverty, that they can't take care of their families.
Poor people are working harder, just trying to keep their heads above water than we can even imagine. It's hard.
It doesn't matter if you have to stand in line and kind of feel bad about yourself, that you're a failure. You have to cross that line to be able to keep the lights on, to be able to keep feeding your kids.
That could be you without a house, wondering if they're going to come put you out. But for the grace of God, because a lot of these people had jobs, have degrees, did everything right, but the bottom fell out. And that bottom was that line. They went below that line.
DuPage County is considered one of the richest counties in the state of Illinois, probably one of the top 50 counties in the country as far as per capita income. So there are a lot of well-educated, middle-class, upper-middle-class people that live here. There's also the part of the county that people don't talk about. There's the about 10% of the population that lives at or below the federal poverty line.
Morning. How you doing?
Good morning.
You have an appointment for August 11th.
Give it back.
Show up. And just Saturday.
There you go. You're all set.
Thank you. Just have a seat over there. Okay, thanks. I remember the first time that I tried to go, I just couldn't do it. I drove there and I sat there and I couldn't get out of the car. And the second time I got out of the car, I went in line and then just got either impatient or just sort of embarrassed and just kind of walked away. Because you just don't want to admit that you're that defeated. You've been brought up never to be a charity case, never to have to ask for help, and all of a sudden you're in that position where you got nowhere else to go. And it's hard.
And you're here for Food Pantry today?
Right.
Okay. And you have a birthday bag for Jason?
Yes.
Good. All right. How old is Jason?
It's going to be 12.
Suburban poverty is now at currently higher rate than urban poverty. It's been a tidal wave over the last 5 years, whereas maybe before it was a trickle, now it's just suddenly, people standing outside the door of the food pantry waiting for us to open. There's a desperation, and all the organizations haven't been ready to deal with the numbers of people coming through their doors. Private organizations are a drop in the bucket compared to the federal assistance programs, and so I think there's got to be a partnership. We certainly know that we have a responsibility to do the job that we're doing, and we want to do the job we're doing, but we can't do it alone. We need the resources of the government to help.
So you said 2 from here?
Right.
And then one from here? Okay. Okay.
Applesauce.
All right. 1 box of cereal? Okay. All right. Should I go healthy or what the kids like?
Everyone comes here. It's people that have grown up in poverty to people that had 6-figure jobs, that were running companies that have lost their jobs. So they're at the end of their rope and they end up here because they don't have anywhere else to turn.
I'm 48 years old and I have 3 kids, single dad. Got a daughter who's 17 and 2 sons. They're 14 and 11. Gonna be 12 and 2 or Wednesday. So.
Hi. Get 2 pieces for me.
Okay. All right.
I was in banking, a senior vice president, making the 6 figures. I was very comfortable. Then the last bank I was at was acquired, went off on my own and started to organize banks kind of at the perfect wrong time in a perfect storm, and kind of everything fell apart from that.
Baked ham for sandwiches.
Oh, okay.
We also have baked turkey in the back there.
My wife at that time filed for divorce because we were in an affluent town. Kind of the stress of all of it took its toll on our marriage, and pretty much that was it. I had to decide what I was going to do with the rest of my life. I had always in the back of my mind thought about teaching. My mom was a teacher, my grandmother was a teacher, my sister's a teacher, so I kind of thought, well, maybe this is my signal to make that transition. Sometimes you just feel like you're sending your resume into a black hole. You talk, to a principal or you follow up and they're like, we've got 4,000 applicants. And you're like, okay, how do I get noticed? How do I do anything? Pretty much I've been on my own for 2 years, trying to make by on substitute teaching income, trying to make by on any tutoring income I can get on the side. In substitute teaching, you're looking at $85 to $100 a day, depending if you get called into work that day. And usually it's last minute. You may get a phone call at 5:30 in the morning. For me, best case, if I'm working almost every day, I can make $12,000. That would be the best I could do. I never thought I would be in that position. I, was a straight A student. I got a high ACT, went to a great school, graduated high honors. Everything is roses. Everything's perfect in your life.
Coffee. Always desperate for coffee.
You have to work really hard to find the way to get by. The government isn't really seeking you out to say, we want to help you get you back on your feet.
All the bread you want?
Oh, the bread? Okay. All right. All right.
I mean, I'm insulted if somebody says, John, you're just lazy. You're just not trying. You just don't care. I'm like, I care. I care more than anybody.
Thank you very much. It's sort of like being at a grocery store where not everything's been put on the shelf, but you just have to do the best you can and hope you get enough that can help you to get through each month. So you kind of put your own choices to the back burner because you know, you just have to try to look and say, what do you really need?
I think that there's a real divide in this country and that people are struggling. The people that maybe are sort of untouched by the recession think that, oh, well, you know, unemployment is going down and, you know, things are starting to look up, businesses are starting to hire people. They're not seeing those people that have really, really been struggling for a long, long time.
You have to make choices sometimes about what bills you're going to pay. I mean, I've had my gas shut off. I've had my electric shut off. It's horrifying, and it's embarrassing when your kids go to turn on something and it doesn't work. It's the most horrible feeling in the world. Kids just don't get it. I think that's been the hardest thing, is just to answer the questions. You know, my youngest son will just say, Dad, when are you going to get your car fixed? You know, and it's like, well, when I can, you know. I have gotten used to checking for the expiration dates. Sometimes, you know, you just got to be careful. I mean, not that you're angry, you're grateful that you get what you get, but you know, one time I got like some Velveeta that somebody donated that was like 5 years old, and it was like a black brick. But I'm hoping that I can hold on for at least another year, maybe two. My kids at the age they are, you know, I really want to be around for them, so moving isn't an option for me. I just feel like I've aged so much. It's like a constant kind of throbbing in your mind of like, what am I gonna do? I don't want to worry about this anymore, but you just don't know how to stop it. You're doing everything that every person says is the right thing to do, the right steps to follow, but it's not happening. And what if it doesn't happen? What if it doesn't happen fast enough?
I do think that a lot of the violence and a lot of what is going on right now is associated with people who are living with post-traumatic stress disorder. Trauma is simply a shift, a sudden shift in the ways in which we understand life and make meaning. Trauma in a psychological or a more psychosocial sort of sense in which I'm poor now, wow. What am I supposed to do? Or the other experience of people who have lived in poverty their entire life, and their mother did, and their grandmother did, and their grandmother did. So there've been generations of poverty, and theirs is a more deeper trauma, which is affiliated with this sort of nihilism or this sense of meaninglessness and hopelessness that says we will always be this way. This will always be the case.
We're on Monroe and Pulaski, and it's considered K-Town, from Pulaski to Laramie because of the Karloff, Keeler, all the Ks. And this is where I grew up, in this house, with my family, my father, my mother, my 2 sisters, and 3 brothers. My sister was going to play for a church, which was about a block that way and about 2 blocks over, and she was walking. It was late, around 10 or so. She was coming down around the corner. She was shot and killed. She was shot in the head and killed. The police never came. You know what I mean? They came for that night, but there was never an investigation. So as far as I'm concerned, they never found out who actually killed her. but that destroyed our family pretty much. That was the beginning of the end of the family that we knew. Just one bullet. We never recovered. One bullet, you know, and we never recovered. I think the thing that bothers me the most is that my sister wasn't a statistic. She had a name. She had a family. She had people that loved her, who depended on her for their survival, literally for their survival emotionally. And it's hard for me even to come down this block. It was a long time that I could even drive down this block because I always think about the day that I heard the bullet.
It's crazy in these streets, and it's hard right now to start judging. But when you get enough pain and it's been enough here, get to wondering if God still loves us. Get to wondering if
So I go by Jay Quest, and my music is what my ministry is. It's around helping people understand that you're human and that you have a ton of possibility and a ton of potential inside of you. And we need to hear that more in these communities of poverty. People are killing each other for some very plain reasons, because whether they're poor or not, in terms of a quantitative measurement, they feel poor. They feel like they need more. They feel less than human. They feel offended by their government. They feel offended by their neighbor.
Easy to complain if it's crazy, it's a world we created. It's like my dreams out of reach. It's pain and all this grief. If you see God and you happen to speak, tell him it's crazy in these streets. Feel my pain and it's so deep.
Most of the young people where I grew up in K-Town, they didn't expect to live past 18, 20, because their friends are dying like, you know, around them. Like this is literally a war. They never know from one day to the next if you're gonna wake up and your friend is gonna be gone, or if it's gonna be you. So there is no hope. You know why they're not so keen on education? Because education means you plan to have a future. They don't plan to have a future. They think that the streets are gonna kill them. That's their reality. One of my first jobs was working at a bank downtown. And when I would say to people where I came from, where I lived, they would be so shocked. Really? You lived over there? Because they don't expect people from K-Town or certain areas to be able to get out and get good jobs and to actually look like success. I was one of the youngest supervisors at the bank. I didn't have my first child till I was 30. I didn't have to depend on anyone, and all the bottom fell out in one fall. It's just all the bottom fell out. There was a screw. My boot got caught in the screw, and I fell head first, 14 feet, into a wall. I broke my arm in two places. I knocked my brain into my spinal column. So it's caused me to start having strokes. I ended up having to have brain surgery where they had to take a big piece of my skull out so my brain could breathe. It took me 15, 20 years to finally get back to where I could be up and around. And keep in mind that I had a 7-month-old, a 2-year-old, and a 6-year-old. I knew I needed to leave, to move out of that neighborhood when my son turned 7.
See, I had a lot of fun as a child running up and down the block. I didn't realize that I was around one of the biggest drug operations right behind my house. There was a lot of stuff being sold in and out through